What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Alto again, and this time we are here with Moose of Kill the Lights. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, man. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you here. So this is technically actually the third Kill the Lights interview. I interviewed Travis at NAMM 2020 to go over stuff with him and Threat Signal, and then I interviewed James right as we entered lockdown. So this was before we even had a full-length Kill the Lights album, but since then we had The Sinner come out in 2022, and now Death Melodies coming out now. First thing is always first. For people who haven't heard the album yet, do you feel like the first singles that we heard off Death Melodies, such as Hear You Scream, From Ashes, Scapegoat, etc., is like a good representation of this whole album, or is that just one little taste of what's to come?
It is and it isn't really. It's like it's more of a mixed bag. This album is. The heavier stuff is heavier. It's a lot more darker record than the first one, you know. So the singles we put out, yeah, they kind of represent the album, but there's definitely a different element, more to come when people actually listen to the full length.
Yeah, I can't wait for the rest of the people to hear the full length. It's definitely different if you say, because like I listened to these first four singles first, but then when I listened to, you know, like Wasting Away and then Man Without a Face, and then you end with a track like Drowning, it just seems like every song has its twists and turns, and every song kind of plays by its own emotional rules.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what we don't intend to do, but that's what we like to do. You know, we don't want, we could have easily written like 10 Hear You Screams or 12 Hear You, but it was like it gets a bit boring for us, and I think the listener as well. So we feel like the album, you know, needs a bit of up and down, but to take you there, don't expect, you know, the turns and twists it takes, you know. So yeah, I'm glad you like it.
Did this feel like a natural sort of sequel in a way to The Sinner, or kind of like a natural follow-up, or were you kind of trying to like step into territory and kind of like demonstrate things on here that you weren't able to demonstrate on The Sinner?
No, there was no plan. The plan was just get together, you know, when we could, or file a share when we could, and this is what came out, really. I mean, in my head, when we released The Sinner, I was like, right, in my head, I wanted to be heavier than The Sinner, you know, like kind of what like Slipknot did. When they released Iowa, I was a lot heavier than the first one. But once you get together with, you know, the four other people, you got really no control of what comes out, so this is just what came out.
Yeah. Well, going with the formation of Kill the Lights, because I loved your work with Bullet for My Valentine. I love Threat Signal. They're, I think, one of the most underrated bands in the genre. I love Throw the Fight and a lot of the different elements that were in, like when I saw this super group on paper in a way and saw all the projects, this just sounded like a match made in heaven or hell, whatever is more metal. But like, were you all trying to like combine your previous experiences and kind of like take a piece of your previous projects into one in a way, or were you all kind of like stepping into uncharted territory that you never really explored on your musical journey?
Yeah, I mean, there was no rules really. I mean, if we got stuck on a part, we were like, oh, what did this song need? If it was like a Travis part, and Travis was like, well, what should I do? I was just, and the answer always was, you know, just be Travis. You know, that's what people like. You know, Threat Signal fans want to hear Travis. You know, and obviously I sound like me, and then Jay sounds like Jay, and then James sounds like Jay. So we just want to be ourselves, but put them all together. So obviously there's going to be some elements that's going to sound like early Bullet for My Valentine, because there's two members of early Bullet in the band, you know. So you just kind of be yourself, and that's how we write our music.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I was very relieved is that, you know, sometimes when we hear a supergroup, it sounds exactly what it sounds like on paper. For example, a good supergroup is Kill or Be Killed, where you have Dillinger Escape Plan, Max Cavalera, and Mastodon, and like it sounds like that. You could tell that that's Max's scream, that's Greg's voice, etc. But with this feels like I'm discovering a new band. Whereas if I don't know who any of the members are, and I don't like, if I were to just listen to this, you know, obviously I knew who it was because I got the press release when you guys formed, but like it just seemed like this was a new breath of fresh air, like whether I knew the members or not, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's what a lot of people are thinking. Oh, is this just like a part-time thing? But it's definitely a full-time band for all the members, you know. So so you should treat it as a new band, because this is in many ways now our main project. So it's definitely a new band.
Yeah, and of course, you know, no artist is the same person that they were in 2005 as they are now. So you're obviously going to learn new things about yourself and new things about your instrumentation as well, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've learned a few home truths and a few life lessons along the way. So yeah, you kind of put them into your playing and your retrospective, what what you're doing in life.
As the drummer, have you always needed music before you laid down your parts and laid down your rhythm, or have you always preferred to have music already present before you started laying down your parts for any project you've been involved with?
Um, I always play to the guitar. That's my thing. I love listening to a guitar. I became a drummer to kind of support what I love hearing, and that was guitar. So I've been to like drum clinics and stuff, which are cool, but it's not my thing. I'd rather play to a guitar, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so once I hear a cool riff, I'm like, what's that? And then I'll put my idea down to what I think is best for that part.
Well, it's funny too. Not to talk shit by any means, but when a guitar player or your musicians present the music and the composition to you, and they don't have drums on it at all, you can tell the truth. How off time is it sometimes?
And it's worse when they give me a demo with drums on it, because I'm like, because they obviously they're a guitar player, and maybe some of them haven't got much knowledge of how drums supposed to be played. It's just like insane, like double kicks all the way through for like 3 minutes, and you're just like, no, one is boring, two, it's not interesting for the listener, and three, it's like, I'm not playing all of that for 3 minutes. You know what I mean?
I'm just gonna say this right now. I think all of those demo drums, I think the people making those were just like, listen to Saint Anger and was just like, yeah, that's the perfect sound for our drum demo. Let's just put that in there.
Yeah. So when I get the demos, I give them a listen to the rough ideas, and then I'll just stick them into like Logic, mute the drums, and then just come up in my room and just randomly just keep playing and playing and playing and playing the same song for hours and hours until it just starts coming up naturally.
A lot of people assume, and I've had this conversation with many drummers, from Gene Hoglan to Justin from Killswitch Engage, and a lot of people assume because the drums isn't a very melodic driven instrument that it's mainly a technical instrument. There's really not an emotion behind it. But I've watched you play before for many playthroughs, and I've seen countless drummers just really channeling energy into that. So is there when you hit the snare, when you hit the toms, when you hit those cymbals, there is sort of like an emotional reason behind it as well, right? It's not or an emotional drive behind it. It's not just, okay, it's needed at this time at this part.
Oh, no way. If I'm recording something, I would put like 1,000% of me into what I'm playing. I mean, you can hear the hunger on the first Bull records, like on the Poison. That's just me just really just pouring everything I had in my life, because I didn't have anything, nothing up until that point. So that's just me giving everything I got to try and, be as successful as I could. So but every recording I do, I try to maintain that mentality.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I think one of the best drum intros, if you will, because it's not very long, but one of Scream Aim Fire is still, I think, I get so much crap from a bunch of metal elites saying this, but I don't care. I was born in '93, so I had my own gateway drugs. Scream Aim Fire was my gateway into thrash. That to me was discovering Master of Puppets for the same time, in the same way for me. So I just think the way that you led into that was almost like your drums conveying like a narrative, let me tell you a story, and then end in that sense.
That's awesome. That's really good. Yeah, a lot of we used to get a lot of crap off all the metal guys, but we're like, why are you giving us crap for, man? We're metalheads too. If we can, like what we did with you and got you into the scene and stuff, I mean, if we could do that to 10,000 other kids, and they're all from Bullet or from Killer Lights, gone into more underground stuff, then that's job done.
Yeah, I mean, I never, to this day, with Bullet, Scream Aim Fire, I mean, sure, you have Heart Bursts into Fire, that's a ballad, of course, but, every other song from the title track to Waking the Demon to Disappear, and, it just seems like that is a very melodic thrash element. Sure, it's not Sepultura's Beneath the Remains, but, it's definitely, I consider that more of a thrash album than a quote-unquote metalcore album,
Oh yeah, well, like you said, when we were writing Screaming Fire, all I was listening to was Slayer and very early Sepultura.
Oh, I see the Sepultura. I see the Igor Cavalera influence in there. That makes a little too much sense now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I was listening to. Then on Fever, all I was listening to a lot of Wasp.
Really? I see some
Yeah.
80s stuff in Fever as well. That's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, if you listen to the title track, the song Fever, and there's like that Tom Symbol fills, I kind of pinched that off the guy from Wasp.
My favorite memory of Fever is because I was in high school when that album came out, and I got the T-shirt at Hot Topic of all places, and the teacher made me go to the restroom and turn my shirt inside out because it had that half naked lady on there, and so that was my memory of Fever record release day.
It was weird because Target, I think, the big supermarket thing in North America, made us put a bikini on the woman. So it just didn't look right. It was just like, what? I just didn't understand, but whatever.
Oh my God, dude, I those are got to be collector's items by now.
Yeah, I've signed it like a few couple. I'm like, oh, there it is. It's the Fever with the bikini on.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's one of the best stories I've heard. But when it comes to like, because I feel like Kill the Lights too has like has this sort of experimentation that Bullet for My Valentine did. Because again, just called Scream Aim Fire thrash, but and I don't want to label, but Tears Don't Fall is just as much of an emo anthem as Welcome to the Black Parade at this point, I feel. So, and then with Kill the Lights, I see just as much variety in it as well, with, having slower paced songs, having really aggressive songs. When you play a very aggressive song versus a very fat, a ballad, if you will, depending on, how fast or whatever, does it almost feel like you express a different emotional energy behind the kit behind that? Do you almost feel like you have to change up your technique even altogether?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, from like playing "Hear You Scream," the opening track of Death Melodies, to like "Sleep with the Devil." I mean, there's definitely a lot of feet positions for "Hear You Scream." If I'm doing like a really fast intro part, which is the beginning of the song, I'll play like ankles almost to the floor, with a lot of pressure, just doing the ankle technique. But then if I'm doing a slow song, I definitely use more my upper legs. So there's definitely more power in the slower songs. And then the faster songs, I rely on my techniques to get me through the faster parts.
When I interviewed Buck Cherry, they told me that playing a slower song is more difficult than a fast song because you might stumble in a fast song, but if you just keep up, you're good to go. But if you're playing a slow song and you botch one beat or one note, your ass is hanging in the wind.
Yeah, the hardest songs for me to play, and a lot of drummers are the same, is the faster stuff is fine. The slower stuff is fine. It's the mid-tempo ones like "Wasting Away." It's like they are the it's like I think that's like 170 beats per minute, but they're the ones which like they're the ones that really grip me, and I'm like they're the ones that mess up the most.
How do you know? Because there's so much stuff. Like with the guitar, not to discredit guitars or bass, but like you're hitting the same frets every time. You're hitting the same strings. You got the same chord. You remember that. But can you honestly, like, when you are playing that in the studio and you're, hit the ride, then hit the crash, then hit the hi-hat and whatnot, do you remember like every single thing you did in the studio when you're on stage? Is there at all any room for improv or kind of like substituting if you don't remember?
I definitely stick whatever I record. They'll stick in my mind. That's it, and that's why I come home and then I rehearse. That's kind of what I do. But yeah, I never really want to improv. I would like to live, but I'm too afraid I'll mess it up, and then I might off-put the other guy. So I just kind of stick it to what has been laid down before.
Yeah, I think you and Travis, both of you, should have your solo moments. I still think Travis is one of the most underrated guitar players in metal history. I think he is up there with I call him the Randy Rhoads of metalcore, or for the forgotten Randy Rhoads, if you will. So
I'll tell him that.
yeah, please do. Say hi to him for me. But when it comes to playing live, because every front man I've interviewed or guitar player, they're facing the crowd head on, and they have to, they're standing and moving around. But when you're in the studio or when you're on stage, you're kind of looking at the same setup the whole way. So is there a lot of similarities between playing live and playing in the studio?
No, two different things, but just equally as exciting. like obviously live, if you make a mistake, it's done, it's gone. You know, it's within a second. But in the studio, you make a mistake, it's kind of like stop, go back, fix the part, do it again or whatever. So there's a lot, even though there might be more people watching you live, there's more eyes upon you in the studio, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Is there a stage presence element though? In the end, you are sitting on the same stool in a way. So is there also like a stage presence or stage persona that you have to kind of get used to playing live?
I used to hate playing live. I kind of just put my head down and just forget I was there. Really, no. I just put my monitors in, put my head down, and once I'm drumming, that's all I care about. I don't care how many people are watching me, or if there's like 2 people there, 20,000 people there. I'm just playing drums for me, really. So
yeah. I'll never forget. I'll never forget being a diehard fan in high school and watching your interview. I remember with who? Brian Stars back in the day. And you were saying, if I was a singer, I would not have lasted this long. I like that I get to hide behind the kit. And yeah, it's good to see that that hasn't changed.
Oh no, I never last. I like to hide away anyway. So, you know, if I was a singer, no way, I'd probably be a full-on blown alcoholic.
It's funny too because I've always thought that Ray from Korn, his giant spider drum set thing, you guys almost are. It reminds me of when like people build forts out of pillows in a way, but you guys do it out of drum hardware.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if the best drum cave I've ever seen is Nico from Iron Maiden. That guy has got it so right. He just sits there and his whole drum kit goes right around him, and then at the end of the show, he steps up, says thank you, and leaves. No one sees him the entire show. I'm just like, that's the way to do it.
That's amazing. But have you ever had the Spinal Tap moment? Have you ever, God forbid, exploded on stage? You've had pyro back in the days, right?
No, not yet. But yeah, we used to. All the guys always used to insist on putting the pyros, the big bangs underneath the drum riser, or the big flames either side of the drum. So I was like, oh, thank you very much.
God bless.
I think I got burned once by a falling on Tears on Fall.
Oh.
We had this like cascading fire stuff, and one went down my back and burned me.
Oh, that must have felt great.
It was awesome. I got to do it again the next night. It was lovely.
But see, a lot of people think that the drummer, they're sitting the whole time, so they don't, and they're not moving as much as the singer or the guitar player. But you guys are constantly moving. There's no real room to take a breath, right?
No, I mean all limbs are going at the same time, listening to multiple instruments, metronomes. There's a lot going on.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Definitely. Now, I didn't want to. I was going to discuss this a little bit. I'll try not to talk about it too much. Just I know that probably every outlet is going to ask you about it, so just brace yourself for it. But next year is going to mark 20 years of The Poison. Again, for me, that is as classic of an album as it gets. All These Things I Hate, I still listen to that album or that song, even when I'm down to this day, as if I was a teenager back then. Tears Don't Fall is an anthem we can't forget. My Fist, Your Mouth, Her Scars, I can't tell you how many times that has related to me. And even deep cuts like Cries in Vain. I think that everything on that album is flawless. First off, what was your memory behind the making of that album? Because correct me if I'm wrong, that wasn't just the first Bullet album. That was your first album in general that you released, right?
Yeah, I mean, our mentality back then was, you only get one shot, really, and we just tried to do the best we could because we had a bunch of songs which we thought were good, and then in the studio we wrote some more, which turned out to be the title track, The Poison, and Suffocating Under Words of Sorrow was written, and we were just like, okay, these are really good, so these are going on the album too. But it was definitely it might not work, so let's just put out the best thing we can and enjoy it and see where it goes, and luckily it went pretty big.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to blow too much smoke, but it almost seems like that album in a way started a movement, and at least in the UK, the same way that like End of Heartache started a movement here in the US, because look at how many bands in the UK have blown up, from Asking Alexandria to Bring Me the Horizon, Architects, now, and even with current bands like Loathe and Employed to Serve and Bleed From Within. It just seems like there's a lot of bands from the UK. I've spoken to them and they're telling me like they talk about that record the same way that people here talk about, oh, I remember when End of Heartache first came out, or The Fall of Ideals first came out, or something like that.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice to know, because when I talk to them, they never mention it.
Oh, really? Well, they should.
Yeah. Well, no, it's nice to hear, you know, like we have definitely put our stamp on heavy metal history a little, even though if the metal guys don't like it, it's tough because we kind of have, you know, it's all is streamed a lot. I think we had a meeting with Sony at the time, and there was like a lot of illegal downloads before Spotify came over, and the Poison had been illegally downloaded 30 million times.
Dude, back in the LimeWire days, right?
Well, I was like, oh man, if this would been released 10 years ago, we'd be completely just one album and retired. I doubt it. We wouldn't have
Oh man, the LimeWire days. See, I'm old school. I still buy my shit on iTunes. That's how old school I am. I'll say I bought your music on iTunes. I did buy it one song at a time, but I did buy it on iTunes. So.
Oh, I mean, I'm streaming things are cool. I mean, it's like a lot of people say, like when the internet started, and you're worried about all this illegal downloading. And first of all, we were like, it's like a kind of a double-edged sword, because we have to pay the label back. But then it had the equal turnaround of someone could be talking to you in a chat room, and someone in Japan talking to a guy in America, and then instantly knows your band. And so there was and then they download it, and then they come to a show. So it was good for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very thankful that like I was able to get access to any album I wanted to listen to anytime I wanted, because I remember I was born in '93, so I remember some of the early days of Tower Records and stuff, and I remember having to beg my parents to drive me a half hour to get it, and then hope the entire way there that the CD I wanted was even in stock, and it wasn't, and then, you know, you kind of go away with nothing. Now you were just able to sort of get everything anytime you wanted, you know?
Yeah, me and my friends used to spend like Saturday mornings from, well, hours, about 3 or 4 hours at a time, just flicking through like vinyl and CDs back in the day. And then now it's just kind of, it's taking the fun out of it a little, because you can just type in something and then algorithms take over. There's nothing like, you can't find really much for yourself anymore.
Yeah, but people are still so into music nowadays. Like, I think the love for music is greater than it's ever been. So people are always falling down rabbit holes and are still discovering old and new stuff. So I really think in the end, it's working out for the better. I think it's just that's becoming the issue, really, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, at least like Spotify, the labels are happy with Spotify and all that. So
yeah,
so as long as they're happy, they can keep paying us to make records, and that's all we care about, really.
As long as the label's happy, right? But
yeah.
Circling back to the Poison, because then came Scream Aim Fire, then Fever, then Temper, and then Venom was your last record with the band, right? So like every single one of those albums were very distinct from each other and had a lot of differences behind it. So was your songwriting process always just no rules? Because I even see that now with The Sinner and Death Melodies, that it really has that sort of same sort of transition, not so much in styles, but in overall experimentation.
Yeah, I mean, we never went in really with an idea. The only album we would kind of like had an idea on was Temper, and then that kind of sparked the whole process. I think we didn't mean to, but when we were writing it, it was a lot of talk about, will this get played on radio and should we tone it down? Do you know what I mean? So that I think affected the album a lot. But the other albums was just go in and write, and if it's good, it goes on the album. And same with Killer Lights now. That's what we do. We don't write for anything. You know, someone said, "Oh, should we write a radio song?" And I said, "Don't even say radio, because as soon as you start writing for radio, it's over."
What does that even mean, though? Like writing, like, because look, I feel like that alone is subjective in itself. Like Stained, that's a radio-friendly band, but I'm pretty sure that there's people who listen to Stained or Creed and think that that's devil music. And then you take a band like Killswitch Engage, a lot of people market that as radio-friendly because of the melodic vocals, but some people think that that's death metal. And then I've heard people listen to like a Behemoth song and then be like, wow, that's has melodic singing, that's radio bullshit. So is there like a threshold, maybe as somebody who's been in a band that has catered to both audiences, is there like a threshold of heaviness that you're allowed to have for it to be kind of considered to be good for radio?
I don't know. I just think. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Like Stained, you mentioned Stained. They're a radio band. I'm sure they don't mean to write for radio. It's just the way that band writes. Do you get it? And then, like with Bullet, the first three was just written, but then we thought, because we were popular, that people wanted to hear more toned down music. You know what I mean? So we were trying to tone it down. But a radio, unfriendly radio, what was my...
Yeah, like is there like a line to how much screaming you could have, or how long your guitar solo could be? Because I think that the only two bands that with long songs that made it good on radio were Avenged Sevenfold and Tool. Oh, and Metallica, of course. But like those are the only three I could really think of that have 7.5-minute long songs and 3-minute solos that have made it to radio.
Yeah, because they just been true to themselves, and then everyone likes it. So radio, like, oh, we'll play it because they're writing what they want to write.
Yeah, and then I think bands like Slipknot, they're as heavy as could be, and they make it to radio. So I never understood the whole radio threshold thing.
Yeah, it was just trying to write music that you think the radio would like to get more fans. I think that's the gist of it, really. Fair
enough. I feel like that there is sort of like a comedy parody record or a satire record that could be made with that subject matter in mind. Just throwing some ideas your way.
I'm not doing that again.
Fair enough. And the final question I wanted to ask you, I saved the most difficult one for last, and I believe I asked Travis and James this as well. How do you know when a song is finished?
It's finished when there's nothing more you can do without ruining it.
Oh, I like that. Without ruining it. That is good, because there is plenty of that happening where it could have just ended perfectly there, and then they add that one little thing and it just ruins the whole thing.
Yeah, it's like a cake, when you think a cake's finished and you just keep prodding it or like picking at it, and then all of a sudden your art has just turned to shit.
Yeah.
So you gotta know, it's done.
Yeah.
And if you do it anymore, it's gonna ruin it.
I couldn't agree. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to interview them anytime soon, so I'll just say it now. But The Memory Remains by Metallica, I love that song, but the second they bring back that final ash to ash, I'm like, why? Why would you do that? It wasn't needed. It could have ended it on the strongest note,
Yeah, no, there's loads of songs which could have ended sooner, but, didn't. But,
it happens. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time, and on a personal level, just thank you for all the music that you've given me, not just with Kill the Lights, but over these years in general, and for playing an important role in my musical journey. Definitely one of the first drummers that I looked up to. Is there just anything else with Kill the Lights that you would like to promote? This new album, Death Melodies, is extraordinary. What could we be expecting in terms of tours or anything else you would like to plug?
We're just doing this UK European tour in April through May, and then all sights are set on North America for the rest of the year and going into 2025.
Oh, please, we want you in North America. I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Oh, we're trying.
Yeah, we'll grab you. We'll bring you here, one way or another. Thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Moose of Kill the Lights, Death Melodies. Be sure to pick that up. It is coming out very, very soon. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.